Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, also on Instagram, and Burley_adopter on Twitter for maybe another few weeks. And then Burley Adopter on a couple of other places like Mastodon and so on. Let me jack this gain up a little bit. The mic seems a little weak for some reason today. Or maybe it's me. Anyway, before we get started, Rerum Trading, yes, you are in fact the first. And if in fact you are the fourth like, that's great. That means we've got 3 likes prior to the show even starting prior to you. So, cool. Like Rerum has posted in there, if you have any opinion on any of the topics we're talking about, or anything, my opinions on the topics we're talking about, then please do feel free to put them in the chat, either there on YouTube or on Facebook Live, where we're also streaming, or on Twitch, where we're, of course, also streaming. Speaking of the Twitches, our first promo here is to ask you to follow us on Twitch, if you would, if you have a Twitch account. That's the URL there on your screen, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. Looking to jack those numbers up to something like what we have on YouTube and Facebook Live. So please check it out, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. A little bit of a change in the way we structure things going forward. It occurred to me, since we have 2 trailers to talk about tonight, or 1 teaser and 1 trailer, what I wound up doing is moving those to the end of the show. And so the thing that is the thumbnail, the news about Kraven, the movie Kraven, is going to be the third to the last topic. After that, we'll get into trailers in a segment I'm now calling Trailer Breaks. And that will let those people who really hate talking about what's in a trailer, because they don't want to see a trailer, they don't even want to know anything about a movie before it comes out, to leave the show at that point. And I will continue talking about the trailer, and hopefully you'll continue reacting to it if you want to, or you can, obviously leave the show at that point. But that will be the way we're going to be doing it going forward. If there are trailers to talk about, they will always be at the end. So those people who don't want to hear any of that can bail. So, having said that, let's get into our first bit of news, and it is, what's the term I'm looking for? Not much of an actual news story. So CinemaCon is going on right now, and Sony is the only one so far that has really had a full presentation. I believe the Warner Brothers presentation is still going on, or just recently closed, and we will have some information coming out from the Warner Brothers presentation there. But the Sony presentation left us with a couple of bits of news. The first one is this about the sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife. It will take place, at least partially, in New York City. So it's going back to the home of the first 2 movies in the Ghostbusters franchise. Technically the first 3, although I know a lot of people don't want to count the most recent movie, essentially reboot, as part of the franchise, but whatever. And that's pretty much the only news that came out from this. There was a presentation by Jason Reitman, who's the producer, but there was no footage shown. There were no screen images. This is from Ghostbusters Afterlife. We don't even know what the title of the upcoming movie will be. I'm going to assume it's not going to be Ghostbusters Afterlife 2, which just sounds terrible. But, they didn't even say that. So, I mean, we do know that this is coming out on December 20th, which is, I would assume they would have put the name out by now, but who knows? And from the previous movie, from Ghostbusters Afterlife, McKenna Grace is coming back, Finn Wolfhard, Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, and so on. Also, no word in here about whether or not any of the original Ghostbusters crews, I don't know if you want to say guest star appearances. There were more than cameos, that's for sure. but whether or not any of them will be coming back for this either. So, yeah, that was really the only thing that Sony had to say about the sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife 2. It's going to be in New York, or at least partially in New York. So, like I said, not really much of a news story there. The next one is a little bit of a more interesting news story. This did not come out at CinemaCon. This actually was something from a little more than a week ago, and because last week was so crowded with topics, I actually kicked it over one. Yes, that's me. I'm interviewing Cass Anvar and Wes Chatham from the series The Expanse. I had to look this up because it's so long ago, but I believe this was 2017, according to what YouTube tells me. And yes, I do not have a mustache in this image, which has nothing to do with the news we're talking about. The one time in my life I've ever cosplayed was at a friend's wedding. It was a Batman-themed wedding, so I cosplayed as Hugo Strange. So I had the sort of Amish beard with no mustache. But the news is that Wes Chatham, there on the right in your image, is going to be joining the upcoming Disney Plus live-action series Ahsoka. This is according to Deadline. It's an exclusive. It hasn't been confirmed. They're usually right about these things. And they say that Chatham will be playing the right-hand man to Admiral Thrawn, the main villain in the series, which I think would be great. I think he was fantastic in The Expanse as the Baltimore-born and bred, probably sociopath Amos. The resident brute, tough guy of the crew of the Rocinante. And he brought an awful lot of depth to a character that could have been played as just a pretty unfeeling, violence-prone guy. And that's all credit to the writers for giving him that, but also to Chatham for doing a great job with that character. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does with, they don't have a name for this character, but Thrawn's right-hand man. Any Star Wars experts out there who are watching the show, feel free to jump into the chat and let us know if that right-hand man is a character in the novels that Thrawn appears in, and so that would, I assume, be the name of the character that Chatham is playing. But it doesn't say this in here. August of this year is when we get to see the series. No specific date, but it will be in August. And he's joining a great cast. We talked about some of the more recent announcements, I think 3 weekends ago, or 3 weeks ago. One of which is that David Tennant is going to be reprising his voice acting role as the droid Huyang. For which, from the Clone Wars series, he won a Daytime Emmy. So that's fantastic. Let's see, we also talked about when they put out the trailer, that's what it was, 2 weekends ago. Luminous, hello, welcome to the chat there on YouTube. As I mentioned, Luminous, I'll give you a heads up, all of the trailer talk will be at the end of the show. So the Kraven thing, which is the thumbnail, will be sort of the third to the last piece, and then we have 2 trailers, or a teaser and a trailer. The Witcher Season 3 and the second Flash trailer. If you don't want to hear about any of that stuff, feel free to bail at that point, but I am going to be talking about some of the things that are shown and revealed in those trailers. So, and that's going to be going forward. That's the way we're going to be doing it. Those will be the last topics on any given night. But in this trailer, the first trailer we saw for Ahsoka, we found out that Natasha Liu Bordizzo is going to be playing Sabine Wren. Mary Elizabeth Winstead will be playing Hera Syndulla, the character from Star Wars Rebels animated show. And they showed us Ray Stevenson playing a Sith Lord and looking totally badass. Really awesome work. But I don't know what his character name is. So very much looking forward to seeing that. And putting Wes Chatham into that series is, to me, a big win. Like I said, always been a fan of his work from The Expanse, in the movie Tenet, Hunger Games, he's just a solid actor. Particularly a good, solid action actor, but there's a lot more depth than just that. So, looking forward to that this August. Moving on to our next topic. This is Mia Goth playing Pearl in the prequel to the movie X about Pearl. And the news is that she is going to be joining the movie Blade, not opposite, but with Mahershala Ali, because they don't say what the character is. Mia Goth obviously, has... Lumina says, trailer news is cool. Okay, cool. Mia Goth obviously has made a huge name in the Blumhouse movie scene as a horror movie star. And, getting her for Blade, I think, is a huge win for them. It doesn't say in here, again, this is a Deadline exclusive. Marvel could not be reached for comment, is what they say. I'm confident that it is correct. They don't say what the character is. I know who I want her to play. I want this character to be Dracula's daughter, Lilith. Lilith is a wonderful character. Villain that, at times, I don't know if you could really call her an anti-hero. A villain that at times works with the needs and wants of the actual heroes. Like sometimes Mr. Sinister has done with the X-Men. He is and always will be a villain, but there have been times when their needs have come together. And Lilith is sort of like that in the horror universe, in the vampire and Dracula universe that includes Blade and Dracula and so on at Marvel Comics. I don't know. It could be a completely new character. They could just make everything up, but you get one of the hottest horror actresses out there in a movie about vampires, give her a character with some real depth to it that has an awful lot of content, written featuring her, about her, and so on. Lilith would just make so much sense. I'm assuming they're not going to go with the standard silly, 1970s almost Vampirella, big cutout down below the navel kind of skin-tight outfit. But, if they do, great. If they don't, it would make sense because, that there's nothing gothic vampire-y about that outfit. It is straight up supervillain. But yeah, and the character Lilith would make sense too because she is even stronger than normal vampires. So she would be a wonderful foil for Blade. Luminous, love an actress with an axe. Reminds me of Joan Crawford in Straight Jacket. Yeah, all right. I'll take that. Not really sure what she's doing with it there because she's choked way up on that thing. She's not going to get any power from that swing, but somebody who chopped way too much wood as a kid. So, anyway, that's the news from Deadline about Blade and Mia Goth. And I've put out there what I really think. Whatever they make, I'm sure it'll be interesting, but please have her play Lilith. I think that would be fantastic. All right, moving on to our next topic. This great news. The news is that Stefan Kapicic, the motion capture actor for Colossus in the 2 Deadpool movies, and Morena Baccarin, who's Vanessa, of course, in the 2 previous Deadpool movies, will be coming back for Deadpool 3. And I am all for that. Anything Morena Baccarin, the fact that I chose a Colossus image here instead of a picture of Morena Baccarin is just shocking to me, but anything Morena Baccarin is in, I'm absolutely devoted to. But I think Kapicic's physical role as Colossus has been absolutely perfect. Just really cool. Serbian-born actor, and I am very much looking forward to seeing Deadpool 3, of course, because of the appearance of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and so on. But Reynolds has also confirmed that they are bringing back Karen Sony as Dopinder and Leslie Uggams as Blind Al. Essentially, it's the entire Deadpool family coming back together for Deadpool 3, and then the addition of Wolverine. I'm looking forward to so many jokes about X-Men Origins Wolverine, because they're going to throw an awful lot of shade at Jackman breaking the fourth wall and all of that stuff about that really dumb movie. Luminous says, Disney making Deadpool 3. I hope they do not tone it down. Yes, they are. I mean, this is Fox, so Disney owns Fox. Reynolds hasn't said. The implication of the second sort of ad that the two of them, that Reynolds and Jackman did, talking about a movie where an awful lot of it is bleeped. A lot of it is bleeped because they were talking about what, supposedly what they wrote as the plot. But an awful lot of it was also bleeped for language. Implies that they're not going to tone it down, and certainly Disney has allowed other studios to make that they owned to make R-rated content. They owned Miramax for forever. Well, technically, I'm assuming then, now that I think about it, it's going to be a Marvel movie, not a Fox movie, even though it came over with the purchase of Fox. The rights went to Marvel, so it's going to be a Marvel movie, and Marvel has not yet made an R-rated superhero movie. Reynolds has said in the past that he wants it to be R-rated, but he is not, that I remember, absolutely 100% committed to it, unlike what we'll talk about with Kraven. So we'll have to see. Honestly, if they make it PG-13, which means they can get away with, I think, 2 F-bombs and an awful lot of everything else, I'd probably be okay with it. I'd rather they keep it R-rated for if for nothing else, the absolute ridiculous amount of gore, because, Deadpool can get literally torn in half and be fine. Without the resulting gore from that, it would look really stupid, and I don't want that to happen. But we'll have to see. Again, it has not been confirmed, as far as I've been able to see, whether or not it is going to be R-rated. Fingers crossed for me and you and everybody else, I'm sure. So in fact, one of the things that might indicate that it's not is that Sean Levy is going to be directing, who directed the Atom Project. And they did a great job with the humor. They didn't go anywhere near any kind of an edge on that humor, because they had a 10-year-old kid, Walker Scoble, playing. But he's not known to do edgy stuff. So, and maybe Reynolds is wanting to tone stuff down. I agree. I hope they don't. I hope they stick to, make it R-rated, and hey, wait for the kids to grow up, or let their parents watch it if they, feel comfortable with that. Or let the parents decide to let the kids watch it if they feel comfortable with that. So yeah. I'm trying to think any other big news coming out of this. That's pretty much it. But I really like the fact that they managed to get these two to come back, and they've essentially got the entire Deadpool family from the first 2 movies to return. So, good for them, good for us. I think that the chemistry between Morena Baccarin and Ryan Reynolds, Vanessa and Wade, is just one of the best romantic chemistry, friendship chemistry, portrayals on film in a long time. They are worlds more believable than the already pretty believable, Scarlet Witch and Vision relationship. It just really works. Google seems to think Deadpool 3 will be R-rated. I'm ready. I'll have to look that up for any of our later stuff. I don't recall that anybody with authority has said in a definitive way that it will, in fact, be R-rated. But let's hope Google is right. All right, moving on to the thumbnail topic before we get into the trailers. This is Aaron Taylor Johnson in what could kind of look like Raven if you give him longer hair, but this is actually from Tenet, which he was in. And the news is that Kraven will, in fact, be R-rated. Johnson confirmed that at Sony's CinemaCon presentation. Kraven the Hunter, technically, is the full title. Without getting demonetized by Google, or by YouTube, he said, quote, "Will it be rated R? F yes." He said the actual word. It's going to be rated R. So they did show a teaser of this to the attendees at CinemaCon, which has not officially been released. I tried doing some searches for leaked versions of it, and nothing that I felt comfortable clicking on came up. So I haven't seen it. The description in this article on Deadline says it starts off where Kraven's facing off against some Australian mercenaries. Russell Crowe is in it, playing his father, who is teaching him to be, a predator/hunter. Chameleon, who is canonically in Marvel, Kraven's brother, who's played by Fred Hetchinger from The White Lotus, is in it. And Ariana DeBose plays Calypso and also appears in a bit in this teaser, calling him a goddamn lunatic. And apparently, the Rhino is in it, but they're not saying if it is, in this article anyway, if it is the Paul Giamatti version of the Rhino from Amazing Spider-Man 2, the very end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, which obviously never went anywhere. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing whether or not it is going to be Giamatti or some other version of a Rhino. They say in this description, Rhino also briefly appears in the footage. Quote, "Do you want to know why they call me the Rhino?" He says, as his arm morphs. Arm morphing is not anything that I associate with the Rhino, unless he's maybe some sort of mutant type character and can turn into, the more traditional comic book Rhino, as opposed to the big power suit that Giamatti was wearing. I really want to see this teaser when they put it out, because I really kind of want to see what Aaron Taylor Johnson looks like as Kraven. He's got the acting chops. If you haven't seen Bullet Train, watch Bullet Train. It is one of the most fun, pretty dumb fun, but fun action movies in a long time. And Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry, as a pair of British hitmen, I guess, enforcers, whatever term you want to use, are fantastic. Frankly, they are almost the heart of the film, and Brad Pitt is sort of just the narrative character that pieces all the different parts together. Anyway, but he's really good in it. He's really good in most things I've seen, not just Kick-Ass, of course, which is what most people think of him as. October 6th is when we get to see it, so anticipate seeing a lot more stuff about this coming out soon. I'm assuming they're going to drop that teaser pretty quickly. Maybe waiting for a, Game 6 of, the Stanley Cup or the NBA playoffs or something. Who knows? But I wouldn't imagine that it's going to be very long before we get to see what everybody at CinemaCon saw. I certainly hope so. All right, so first, the teaser that we talk about is The Witcher Season 3. That just dropped on YouTube. It really looks pretty solid. It looks like they are once again showing flashbacks to an earlier time in Geralt's life career as a Witcher. This clip that I took this from is right at the very beginning where he's taking a potion. All the potions seem to have the same effect. I think this might be black blood, because he says at some point, as is a shot of him walking into the frame, so you see his back as he's holding a silver sword. And he's only got one sword on his back, only a silver sword. That he says in a voiceover is like, this is the first time I ever actually felt fear, or something to that effect. And at the end of the corridor that he's walking down, there's a shadowy, very humanoid looking character. I'm thinking that implies that there are vampires in this, which would make sense. We do absolutely see the Wild Hunt. So the Wild Hunt is definitely in it. And according to this article on The Hollywood Reporter, Netflix has put out a description of what season 3 is going to be, sort of loosely containing. It says, as monarchs, mages, and beasts of the continent compete to capture her, Geralt takes Ciri into hiding, determined to protect his newly reunited family against those who threaten to destroy it. Entrusted with Ciri's magical training, Yennefer leads them to the protected fortress of Aretuza, where they hope to uncover more about the girl's untapped powers. Instead, they discover they've landed in a battlefield of political corruption, dark magic, and treachery. So that's sort of from the novels and stories. So I think it'd be very interesting to see that. I'm not really sure how much of that sort of political and, king-making machination, empire-building machination is going to go on in this story. In addition to, or aside from, certainly encounters with the Wild Hunt, because again, we see them in this teaser, and maybe encounters with the vampire, or with a vampire, a higher vampire. So whatever it is, it looks pretty good. And of course, we're going to be watching it. I'm going to be watching it because it's Cavill's last season, and realistically, the last season of The Witcher. I know they've announced that Liam Hemsworth is going to do season 4. I would be surprised, certainly given Netflix's recent financial troubles isn't the right word, but fluctuations, if they actually do make a season 4 without Cavill. They may have commitments. I know that Cavill was supposedly in for 7 years or 7 seasons. And so many of the other actors or actresses, like, the actress who plays Ciri or Yennefer, have made similar commitments. And so maybe it would be a problem for Netflix to break those. So that may be why they're going to try a season 4. I still say I would be very surprised if it happens. This was Cavill's show. Liam Hemsworth is fine. He's not as charismatic as Henry Cavill. He may be a better actor. I don't know that for sure. Of the things I've seen him in, I couldn't say. Anything I've seen him in hasn't called upon him to be particularly amazing as an actor. But, I just don't see it happening. But October 29th, that's when he announced that he was going to be leaving this recent October. Here it is, June 29th. In fact, they are going to be splitting this up into 2 parts. So you will get to binge the first 5 episodes on June 29th, and then the last 3 episodes, so again, it's an 8-episode season, on July 27th. So they're splitting it up by a month, which kind of sucks. But they've done that before with other shows. I get that it's a way to ensure that people will be watching it. It's Henry Cavill's last season. They're going to watch it no matter how you release it. So, yeah. I will be watching it certainly, no matter how they release it, and looking forward to it. I'm also pretty convinced that there is some, flashbacks to early encounters that Geralt has. If no other reason than some of the armor he's wearing is very sort of simplistic early game Witcher 3 looking armor. That sort of kind of gives it away to me. But check it out if you're into trailers and if you're into the Witcher Netflix version, and let us know what you think. All right, our last topic and our last trailer is, as I said, for the second trailer of The Flash. The reason I picked this particular image of Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne in mostly the Batman outfit is that you get absolutely the clear message that this is a movie about a bunch of superheroes that happens to be centered around the activity of the Flash, of Barry Allen, or in this case of two Barry Allens. There is way more Keaton in this than there was in the first trailer. There's way more Supergirl in this. There's about the same amount of Ben Affleck Batman in this, although doing different things. But it definitely spells out more the overriding story of the movie for anybody who wasn't familiar with Flashpoint. And obviously that is that Barry goes back in time, he saves his mom, and as he puts it, he screws up, the entire universe. They do a very smart job, I have to say, at least based on what I see, of making that. They didn't try to cram in the Flashpoint storyline, which is changing the Batman mythos very significantly, but also changing Wonder Woman and Aquaman and wars between Atlantis and Themyscira. They took what has already happened in the Snyderverse version of DC movies up to this point and said, all right, this is how Barry screws things up. And that makes sense. It allows them to bring back, actors like, Michael Shannon as Zod. It allows them to take that and expand upon it because things have changed and the universes are going in a different direction. What this means for anything after the end of the Snyderverse, and this is the end of the Snyderverse. Yes, Aquaman 2 is yet to come out. There's no question that they're pulling out all the stops, bringing in all the names, throwing everything at the wall that they can to make this the final, nail in the coffin, I guess you could say, or, final high point of the Snyderverse. And yes, Ezra Miller looks really, really good as both versions of Barry Allen. At the CinemaCon presentations that Warner Brothers put out, CEO David Zaslav said that Ezra Miller is, one of the best actors he's ever seen. That is probably as much marketing hype about, hey, please come see this movie, and ignore the fact that Ezra Miller is still allegedly recovering from being problematic. I'd really like to hear some updates on their progress in dealing with the many, many issues that they had that caused people to basically assume this movie would just never be released. They look great. I've always been a fan of Ezra Miller's acting outside of the big franchises and even in the big franchises. Even when some of those franchise elements or properties that he's in or they're in are just terrible, like all the Fantastic Beasts things. So, I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for their recovery. I want to see more information about that recovery. before I feel really comfortable in recommending, people just say, okay, yeah, go ahead and see this movie because they are doing better and getting better and properly dealing with, the legal and ethical issues that they brought up in their terrible behavior. Um, so right now I'm very optimistic about the actual physical structure and everything else about the movie. I'm not yet ready to say yes, let's all get excited about this and go see it until I hear a little bit more about where Miller is in their recovery. Um, so, do that. Use that as you will. Definitely go look at the trailer. It's a really well done trailer. It's super exciting. It's very emotional. Um, it gives us some great moments between Keaton and Miller, between Affleck and Miller, between I know I'm not gonna remember her name. Sasha Calle, Kara Zor-El or Supergirl and Miller. It's a good trailer and should get you excited if you're at all a fan of the DC properties, including if you were a Snyderverse fan. There is still the big question of whether or not any of these people will be continuing into the DCU. And they're not going to answer that clearly until the movie is out and they've determined whether or not it's a hit. Or to what degree it's a hit, if it is a hit. And if it's a huge hit, I guarantee that, there's going to be some Zaslav or somebody's going to be talking to James Gunn and Peter Safran and say, by the way, figure out how to get this character into your universe or that character into your universe. And that's not an option. You remember, they're the CEO and president or whatever, the co-CEOs or whatever their titles are of DC Studios under Warner Brothers Discovery. Zaslav is their boss. And if Zaslav says, put Barry Allen, played by Ezra Miller, in your new DCU, they're going to do it. So yeah, we'll have to see where that all shakes out. But do watch the trailer. It's really good. It's really exciting. It is coming up June 16th. So, not that far away. Less than 2 months? So be prepared for an awful lot more information to be, thrown at us. More trailers, more... what I would really like to see is Miller at a point where they would be willing to put them out, where Warner Brothers would be willing to put them out onto a promotional tour to hype up the movie. Because that would tell me an awful lot about whether or not Miller is at a point of recovery that is believable. But we'll see. And that, folks, is it. That's the end of the show. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the wonderful chats in the chat there on YouTube. Our next appearance, or mine particularly, and I think it's the whole team, I don't think anybody else has anything before then, it will be in a couple of weeks. Will be May 6th at Free Comic Book Day. I'll be at Double Midnight Comics in their new location in Manchester. And it looks really amazing. That's basically a mini one-day Comic-Con. They've really ramped it back up to the level that it has been at times, like back in 2015 and 2016, because they have the space. They're in that new location, which is in a big renovated mill building, and it's gonna be cool. I'll make sure I bring enough money to buy at least one barbecue brisket sandwich from the barbecue truck. Becky, welcome to the show. What's weird about Deadpool 3 is that it's creepy. That's why it's rated R. I not really sure what you mean by it's creepy, because we don't know the plot at all. But interested to hear more about why you think it's creepy, or what you've read that says it's a creepy movie. But as far as I know, we don't know anything about the plot other than what I mentioned, the people who are coming back, and that Wolverine is going to be part of it. But yeah, that's it, folks. Thank you, even Becky jumping in very at the end there. Thank you for all the chats. We will see you at an upcoming show after Free Comic Book Day. I'm not sure. We've got people at Colossal. Well, no, I don't know if we have anybody at ColossalCon Prime. Might be at PortCon. So much stuff is up in the air right now. I couldn't say for sure. For sure, I know that it's a ways out, but we will definitely be at Fan Expo Boston in the first weekend in August. But I'm sure there's going to be stuff in May and June and July. Probably CinemaCon. I don't believe I'll be at that one. I've already made a prior commitment to help somebody out on that weekend. But we will undoubtedly have team members there. So we'll see you at an upcoming con. We will see you at the next show. In the meantime, do stay safe. And let's all hope, for those of us who are still in New England here, that it gets back to those 60s and 70s, because I miss those. Good night.